I'm super stressed out and I make a dumb decision and I regret it.
After her father's tragic death, Brooke Hogan has stepped forward with unsettling revelations about what truly happened behind closed doors. From manipulation to physical abuse, the experiences she claims to have endured at the hands of her father are deeply disturbing. But what exactly did she expose? And how might these revelations forever alter the Hogan legacy? Let's uncover the truth behind Brooke Hogan's heartbreaking story of family abuse. For years, the Hogan family seemed to embody the perfect American dream. Their hit reality show Hogan Knows Best, which ran from 2005 to 2007, portrayed a close-knit and lively household navigating fame with humor and unity. Hulk Hogan appeared to be the ideal protective father, devoted to his children, Brooke and Nick, while Linda played the part of a caring mother balancing family life with the pressures of celebrity. Yet, behind the bright lights and cameras, a much darker truth was allegedly unfolding. Now 36 and a mother of twins, Brooke Hogan finally found the strength in 2025 to speak out about what she describes as years of abuse and control by both her parents. The rumors gained confirmation when Linda Hogan released an emotional Instagram video in March 2025, tearfully reflecting on the collapse of their family and revealing just how broken things had become.
My family is in the worst mess. Brooke doesn't talk to us. She cut me out. I haven't talked to her for 7 years, almost 8 years.
Linda's emotional plea revealed the pain of a mother struggling to understand why her daughter had completely shut her out of her life. She shared that Brooke had gotten married and given birth to twins without ever telling her parents, forcing them to learn about these major milestones through social media just like strangers would.
She had twins, she got married, she didn't tell us. She had twins, she didn't tell us. She had a huge fight with Terry.
But Brooke's response to her mother's emotional video shattered any remaining illusions about the Hogan family's hidden turmoil. In a detailed Instagram post that sent shockwaves across social media, Brooke didn't just reject her mother's version of events, she backed it up with proof. She shared photos from a 2023 meeting that clearly showed they had been in contact far more recently than Linda claimed. Yet, the real impact of her post came when Brooke used the moment to expose the disturbing reality of what she says happened behind closed doors throughout her childhood and even into adulthood. According to Brooke, she endured years of harsh verbal and emotional abuse that often escalated into physical violence. What stunned the public most was her claim about who was actually responsible. She revealed that the abuse didn't come from the parent most people would expect, alleging that much of it came from her mother, Linda, not her father. Hulk, a revelation that completely changed how people viewed the family.
You can take it however you want to. It is what it is.
According to Brooke, the abuse she endured wasn't limited to physical violence during her childhood. She described a long pattern of emotional control and mental torment that continued well into her adult life through what she called cruel text messages and humiliating public confrontations filled with deeply hurtful words. Brooke explained how this constant mistreatment slowly destroyed her confidence and self-worth, forcing her to fake the strength that had been taken from her. One of the most painful parts of her story was how she claimed to be used as a pawn in her parents' constant conflicts, pushed to defend actions she later realized were impossible to justify. She said she was expected to overlook major damage to her career and personal life caused by their behavior and lies. Her decision to completely cut off contact with both parents, she stressed, was not made out of anger or spite, but out of self-preservation. Brooke clarified that the reasons for distancing herself from each parent were entirely separate, making it clear this was not about taking sides in their divorce, but about protecting her peace and her new family from ongoing manipulation and toxicity. The seriousness of this decision became evident when it was revealed that Brooke had kept some of her most important life events private from her parents. She quietly married Stephen Alexi in 2022 and welcomed twins, Oliver Andrew and Molly Jean, in January 2025, choosing not to share any of these milestones with them. Through it all, Stephen has stood firmly by her side, emerging as one of her strongest supporters amid the family turmoil.
It's hard, and everybody was like, oh, Brooke stands by her dad and this and that, and it's like, first of all, that's who I am.
According to Brooke, the abuse she endured wasn't limited to physical violence during her childhood. She described a long pattern of emotional control and mental torment that continued well into her adult life through what she called cruel text messages and humiliating public confrontations filled with deeply hurtful words. Brooke explained how this constant mistreatment slowly destroyed her confidence and self-worth, forcing her to fake the strength that had been taken from her. One of the most painful parts of her story was how she claimed to be used as a pawn in her parents' constant conflicts, pushed to defend actions she later realized were impossible to justify. She said she was expected to overlook major damage to her career and personal life caused by their behavior and lies. Her decision to completely cut off contact with both parents, she stressed, was not made out of anger or spite, but out of self-preservation. Brooke clarified that the reasons for distancing herself from each parent were entirely separate, making it clear this was not about taking sides in their divorce, but about protecting her peace and her new family from ongoing manipulation and toxicity. The seriousness of this decision became evident when it was revealed that Brooke had kept some of her most important life events private from her parents. She quietly married Stephen Alexi in 2022 and welcomed twins, Oliver Andrew and Molly Jean, in January 2025, choosing not to share any of these milestones with them. Through it all, Stephen has stood firmly by her side, emerging as one of her strongest supporters amid the family turmoil. When Linda publicly attacked Brooke's character and fired back with counter-accusations, Stephen stepped in with his own detailed Instagram post, carefully challenging Linda's claims and sharing his perspective on the family dynamics he had personally witnessed. In defending his wife, Stephen praised Brooke's integrity and her sincere efforts to make peace with her family, even revealing that she had once designed a home for Linda, free of charge as an act of kindness, an offer that was ultimately rejected. Linda Hogan's reaction to these serious accusations seemed to confirm the very toxic behavior Brooke claimed she was trying to escape. Instead of responding to her daughter's painful allegations with empathy or understanding, Linda denied everything and labeled Brooke a narcissist, comparing her to her father. She admitted only to spanking Brooke once and using harsh words, while turning the blame around by making new accusations about Brooke's supposed drunken behavior, claims that both Brooke and Stephen firmly denied. The public exchange exposed exactly the kind of dysfunction Brooke had been describing. Rather than accepting responsibility or showing remorse, Linda's instinctive response was to attack and deflect, repeating the same destructive patterns that may have played a major role in tearing the family apart to begin with.
I've been through so much stuff in my life. I was like, the one thing that feels like it's just so untouched and it's so pure, I was like, I just don't want to, let the claws of fame sink its teeth into, my...
The abuse allegations made by Brooke don't exist in isolation. They're part of a much larger pattern of dysfunction that had been visible for years to anyone paying close attention. The bitter divorce between Hulk and Linda Hogan, finalized in 2009 after 24 years of marriage, was filled with accusations, hostility, and public feuds that created an undeniably toxic environment for their children. During the proceedings, Linda made her own claims of abuse against Hulk. And in her 2011 memoir, Wrestling the Hulk, My Life Against the Ropes, she described incidents where she alleged Hulk tore her shirt, threw lamps, and even held her down with his hands around her throat. She wrote that she lived in constant fear, comparing herself to Nicole Brown Simpson and implying she worried the same tragic outcome could happen to her. Hulk, however, fiercely denied every claim, filing a defamation lawsuit against Linda in 2011 and insisting her accusations were false and damaging to his name. Whether or not those specific claims were true, the public chaos that surrounded their divorce created an emotional battlefield for their children. Brooke and her brother Nick grew up in this environment of conflict. Manipulation and alleged abuse forced to pick sides, pressured to defend parents who may have been hurting them, and expected to present a perfect image of family unity, even as their private reality was allegedly breaking apart behind closed doors.
It was probably the worst day of my life when I said that 8 years ago. I bottomed out. I was having some problems with the marriage and financially and the kids, of course, and I was kind of mad at my daughter, and there was a weird situation where I said what I said.
The depth of Brooke's pain becomes even clearer when you realize she named her daughter Molly Jean, using her father Hulk's middle name as her daughter's middle name. This deeply personal choice suggests that, despite everything that happened, Brooke still carried love for her father, even if maintaining a relationship with him was impossible because of the alleged abuse and toxicity. In her final statement on the matter, Brooke said her goal was to break the cycle of abuse and create a healthy, loving environment for her own children. For her, this wasn't just about healing from old wounds, it was about ensuring that future generations would never endure what she claims to have suffered. The courage it took for Brooke to speak publicly about these alleged experiences cannot be understated. Speaking out about family abuse is incredibly difficult, but doing so when your family is famous, when your words will be judged and debated by millions, takes exceptional bravery and resolve. Yet, to fully understand the toxic atmosphere that Brooke says shaped her childhood, we must look at the man at the center of it all and the decades of scandals that came to define his legacy, Hulk. Hogan's long history of controversies and scandals paints a far more disturbing picture than the wholesome image he once projected as America's wrestling hero who preached about training, prayers, and vitamins. Behind that public persona lies a series of shocking incidents that may shed light on the toxic family environment Brooke has described. The most damaging controversy of his career erupted in July 2015, when leaked audio recordings exposed Hogan using racial slurs while discussing his daughter Brooke's dating life. In the private conversation, he expressed discomfort over her reportedly dating a black man and admitted, in his own words, that he was racist to a point. But the racism didn't stop there. Additional recordings surfaced in which, following his son Nick's 2007 car accident, Hogan made disturbing comments about karma, saying he feared being reincarnated as a black person. These revelations exposed not just casual prejudice, but a deep-rooted mindset that cast a shadow over his public image and raised serious questions. about how such beliefs may have shaped his behavior and the family dynamics within the Hogan household.
It's just something that I pray to God every day for the strength to deal with, because it's hard. There's days where I can't even get out of bed.
The fallout from the scandal was immediate and brutal. On July 24th, 2015, WWE terminated Hulk Hogan's contract and erased nearly every trace of him from its website, even removing his Hall of Fame profile. For a man whose entire identity and legacy were built around professional wrestling, this public erasure was devastating. But the emotional toll on his teenage daughter was even greater. Brooke not only had to face the humiliation of her father's racist remarks being exposed to the world, but also had to cope with the fact that she was the very subject of those comments. What made the situation even worse was that the leaked audio came from another major scandal tied to Hogan's personal life. In 2007, a sex tape had been secretly recorded featuring Hogan and Heather Clem, the wife of his close friend Bubba the Love Sponge. When Gawker Media published parts of the tape in 2012, Hogan filed a lawsuit for invasion of privacy. The legal battle ended with him winning a massive $140 million verdict, later settled for $31 million victory that could never fully undo the damage to his reputation or the pain it caused his family.
Take a deep breath. You have to make sure that you're honest, because you have to be accountable. And, you address it. And at the end of the day, pray to God that those that love you and the people close to you, like your friends, and sometimes you don't even know if they're your friends.
The combination of the sex tape scandal and the exposure of his racist remarks created a perfect storm of public controversies that engulfed the entire Hogan family. Brooke, who was trying to carve out her own career in music and entertainment, constantly found herself defending her father's actions, while navigating the fallout that damaged her own professional prospects. Yet Hogan's struggles with honesty and integrity extended far beyond these headline-making incidents. He has a well-documented history of exaggerating or fabricating stories about his career and personal life, from claiming he wrestled 400 days in a year due to time zone differences, to being scouted by major bands like Metallica or being considered for big film roles. These exaggerations became so notorious that fans and peers in the wrestling world often mocked them. His dishonesty wasn't limited to harmless bragging. In 1994, during Vince McMahon's federal steroid trial, Hogan admitted to using anabolic steroids for nearly 14 years from 1976 to 1990, contradicting previous public denials where he had downplayed his drug use. While his testimony helped McMahon secure an acquittal, it also revealed the pervasive use of performance-enhancing drugs in wrestling and tarnished Hogan's carefully cultivated image as a wholesome role model. Growing up in a household where the primary male figure treated the truth so casually would have been deeply destabilizing for any child. How can you learn to trust and form healthy relationships when the person you look up to consistently lies about both trivial and serious matters? How can you develop a clear sense of right and wrong when the very person who is supposed to teach those values shows repeatedly that the rules don't apply to him?
Our family's been through a lot of crap, and I will say my dad, despite, it's hard to, have all your skeletons, pulled out of your closet and just waved in front of everybody's face and humiliated the world.
The impact of these controversies on the Hogan family was intensified by further tragedies and scandals that seemed to follow them relentlessly. In August 2007, Brooke's younger brother Nick was involved in a serious car accident while driving under the influence, leaving his passenger, John Graziano, with catastrophic brain injuries that required lifelong care. Nick served 8 months in jail, and the family eventually settled with Graziano's family for around $1.5 million. Yet, even amid this tragedy, Hulk Hogan managed to make matters worse with his public remarks, facing backlash for suggesting that Graziano's injuries were part of God's plan, demonstrating a shocking lack of empathy for the victim of his son's reckless actions. These comments painted a picture of a man seemingly unwilling or unable to take real responsibility for the consequences of his family's behavior.
I was at the lowest point of my life. My personal life was destroyed. I was to the point where I wanted to kill myself.
The pattern that emerges from examining these controversies is deeply concerning. Hulk Hogan repeatedly put his own image and interests above the well-being of his family, often using his children as props in public appearances, and crafting a household where maintaining control mattered more than truth or empathy. This tendency extended into his professional life, where his use of creative control clauses, refusal to lose matches, and manipulation of wrestling storylines became legendary in the industry. He prioritized his personal gain over what was best for the promotions that employed him, shaping narratives to serve himself. Within his family, the same drive for control and manipulation would have been profoundly damaging. If Hogan went to such lengths to influence storylines professionally, it's easy to see how far he might have gone to control his household, lending additional weight to Brooke's claims of being used as a pawn or buffer in family conflicts. Financial stress only amplified these tensions. The 2009 divorce from Linda left her with 70% of liquid assets, 40% ownership of his companies, and a $3 million property settlement, a split that Hogan later admitted pushed him to the brink of bankruptcy. and further complicated an already toxic family environment.
We counted how many surgeries he's had in the last 10 years, and I think we're at 25.
Oh, God.
So he's had both shoulders scoped, and he had his whole bicep and his bursa sac and his everything tied up in his shoulder.
The revelation that Hulk Hogan struggled with suicidal thoughts during this period provides key insight into the household Brooke grew up in. Living with a parent facing severe mental health crises, while simultaneously dealing with public scandals and legal battles, created a home filled with constant tension and unpredictability. Perhaps the most harmful aspect for his children was Hogan's repeated refusal to take genuine responsibility for his actions. In public apologies and statements, he consistently blamed external factors, his divorce, financial troubles, or his rough upbringing, rather than acknowledging the character flaws that drove his repeated mistakes. This cycle of blame shifting and playing the victim would have been especially damaging to his children, who had to witness their father avoid accountability while managing the consequences in their own lives. Brooke's career in music and entertainment was inevitably affected by her father's scandals, yet she was still expected to publicly support him while privately confronting the damage his behavior caused to her own prospects. Understanding Hulk Hogan's pattern of controversial behavior not only explains the toxic environment Brooke endured growing up, but also sets the stage for the ultimate tragedy of the family saga, a story marked by death and missed chances for redemption. The final chapter of Hulk Hogan's life shows a man whose body was failing as dramatically as his family relationships had unraveled. By 2023, the wrestling icon who once seemed unstoppable was confronting the consequences of decades of physical punishment, countless surgeries, and worsening health, ultimately leading to his death on July 24, 2025, at the age of 71 from cardiac arrest. The toll of his wrestling career had been severe and cumulative. In conversations with Brooke during better times, the scale of his medical struggles became evident. Over the past decade, the family counted roughly 25 major procedures, including arthroscopic surgeries on both shoulders, full bicep and bursa repairs, multiple knee replacements, hip surgeries, and elbow procedures. One particularly dangerous incident occurred when Hogan developed MRSA, a severe antibiotic-resistant infection following a shoulder surgery, forcing the procedure to be redone and putting his life at serious risk. The constant cycle of surgeries, complications, and prolonged recoveries painted a stark picture of a man whose body had been relentlessly worn down by years of abuse in the wrestling ring.
My first call was to Brooke, and Daddy's little girl, unconditional love also, so I had to explain it to her. She goes, "Dad, I love you. You made a huge mistake, but do what's right."
Despite these severe health challenges, Hogan continued to follow an intense workout routine almost until the end of his life. Reports from his final months indicate that he was still spending 2 hours in the gym every day, showing the same obsessive dedication to physical fitness that had defined his entire adult life. This relentless commitment reflected both his remarkable discipline and perhaps an unwillingness to fully accept the realities of aging and mortality. The last conversation between Brooke and her father took place in September 2023, just 2 weeks before Hulk married his third wife, Sky Daly. During that phone call, Brooke expressed her love for him and urged him to slow down and take care of his health, speaking with genuine concern for his well-being.
Brooke loved him deeply, was fiercely loyal, and only ever wanted him to be peaceful, happy, and surrounded by people who valued him for who he really was.
During this conversation, Hulk offered an apology, though the exact details of what he was apologizing for remain unclear. This final exchange between father and daughter stands as one of the most poignant moments in the entire Hogan family saga. Despite years of alleged abuse, manipulation, and painful conflict, Brooke's instinct was still to express love and concern for her father's well-being. Her urging him to slow down and care for his health demonstrates that beneath all the dysfunction, she still genuinely cared. Hulk's response revealed both his capacity for remorse and his limitations as a father and human being. While he did apologize, reports suggest he insisted that any future relationship would have to occur on his terms, reflecting his inability to fully grasp or take responsibility for the damage he had caused to their bond. The news of his death reached Brooke in a way that underscored the family's enduring dysfunction. She learned of her father's passing when her brother Nick texted her husband, Stephen, to relay the news. Even in death, there was no direct communication between father and daughter. The news had to come through intermediaries, underscoring just how broken the family bonds had become. Brooke's reaction to her father's passing, as described by her husband and close friends, reflected a complex mix of grief, relief, and lingering pain that defined her relationship with him. Ashley Cora, a close friend, shared on social media that Brooke had loved him deeply, remained fiercely loyal, and had only ever wanted him to be peaceful, happy, and surrounded by people who valued him for who he truly was. This statement captures the tragedy at the heart of the Hogan family story. Despite the alleged abuse, manipulation, and years of estrangement, Brooke still loved her father. She wished him happiness and peace, yet she could not remain part of his life because doing so would have come at too high a cost to her own well-being and to that of her children.
if anybody should have disowned me, it should have been her. You know, she should have been the one. She should have been the one to throw me out like the trash, but instead she showed me more love than anything.
The relationship between Brooke and her brother Nick during this period offers another perspective on the Hogan family dynamics in Hulk's final years. Unlike Brooke, Nick maintained some level of contact with both parents amid the ongoing conflicts. Sources close to the family describe him as being caught in the middle, often trying to stay neutral to remain in the good graces of as many family members as possible. His own journey through trauma and recovery appeared to shape a different approach to the family's dysfunction and the concept of forgiveness. The experience of solitary confinement following his 2007 car accident taught Nick important lessons about identity and ego, lessons that seemed to guide how he navigated relationships within the family in later years.
I really learned a lot about unattaching myself from my ego. I realized that sitting in solitary confinement, I was still the same person. Without, you know, the house that I lived in, or the car that I drove, or the clothes that I put on, I realized that I'm still the same person.
The fact that Nick was the one to inform Brooke's husband about their father's death indicates that she had not completely severed ties with her brother, even if she could not maintain a relationship with her parents. This dynamic added further complexity, as Nick found himself acting as a bridge between his estranged sister and their parents, while trying to preserve his own emotional balance. In the months leading up to his death, Hulk reportedly expressed confusion over why Brooke had distanced herself, claiming he did not understand the reasons for their estrangement. This apparent lack of insight into his own actions suggests that, even in his final days, he struggled to fully acknowledge the pain he had caused his family. Adding another layer of tragedy, Brooke and her husband had moved to Florida, reportedly intending to be available to help care for Hulk as his health declined. Despite being physically near her father in his final months, the emotional distance between them remained unbridgeable. The choice to name her daughter Molly Jean, using Hulk's middle name, stands out as perhaps the most complex gesture in the entire Hogan family saga. That Brooke made this decision, despite their complete estrangement, suggests her feelings toward her father were far more nuanced than simple rejection or anger. She honored the man he might have been, or perhaps the father she remembered from her earliest childhood, while simultaneously protecting her own children from the man he had become. As Hulk Hogan's life drew to a close, surrounded by his third wife and the few friends who remained loyal, the absence of his daughter and grandchildren served as the ultimate consequence of a lifetime spent prioritizing image over relationships and control over genuine connection. His death marked not only the end of a wrestling legend's life, but also the closing chapter of a family tragedy, a stark reminder that fame, fortune, and physical strength cannot make up for failures of character or the inability to truly love and protect those closest to us.